Hello, my name is Suzanne Cuccurullo, and I am the Dean of Admission at Bentley University. We're a business university, well-ranked business university, one of the top 10 in the United States, about 13 kilometers outside of Boston, Massachusetts. Today, I've been asked to discuss a little bit about what universities are looking for. And so I'm very happy to kind of give you some ins and outs of the U.S. University and what we actually look for in the admissions process. So I'm going to share some slides with you. Give me a second here. So our first presentation here, what universities are looking for. So this is not meant to be comprehensive, but it is quite complete, I think. We're going to start with the top 3 things that you can imagine that universities are looking for. Number 1 being academics, number 2 being standardized test scores, and number 3 being interest in extracurricular involvement. So let's dig into each of those topics if we could. Number 1, academics. So we look at academics in a kind of a little bit of a different way because we're looking at all 4 years of your achievements in high school. The first thing we're looking at is your curriculum. Most universities are looking for a little bit of growth in your curriculum. Maybe you start out more just college prep, but then hopefully by your junior and senior year, we're seeing some more rigorous classwork, whether in the IBs or in APs or even in your A levels. So we're looking for you to challenge yourself, but not to the point where your grade point average will go down significantly. So I always say if you're getting a C in a challenging course, you should probably drop it down a little bit. Or if you're getting like a 4 or 5, you should definitely drop down your rigor a little bit in order to keep the grades high, because that would probably be more important than showing overly rigorous curriculum. Grades, GPA, let's say you didn't start out so strong, but in the end, you were able to kind of see an upward trend. That is perfectly fine. We're looking for somebody who is showing growth. And this is especially important if you're increasing your rigor of your classes, because as your classes get more rigorous, if you're able to continue to have either a great performance or an upward trend, that's really important. Course selection. This really varies on the type of university that you are looking for or the program that you're looking for. So for example, in a business university like myself, or if you're interested in studying engineering, being able to be strong in mathematics would be very, very important. If you're looking pre-med, science classes will be quite important. So for example, at Bentley University, we look for our students to have the minimum of pre-calculus or math SL, and we'd more like to see math HL or AP Calc or at least calculus, but those kinds of course selections are important depending on what you're planning on studying. So you should really check with the university to see what they're looking for in that regard. We've talked a little bit about level of difficulty, whether it's CP or honors, SL, AP, RB. You go to the level of difficulty you can do successfully. And then some schools still do class ranking, not many any longer. Just keep an eye on that. I would say because so few schools do it any longer, it's become less and less important to universities. Unless, of course, you're valedictorian, and that you should definitely brag about. We'd love to hear about that. The next thing I mentioned is standardized test scores. Some schools are no longer requiring scores. They could be test optional or test flexible, meaning that they'll take something beyond the SAT or the ACT. Definitely check with the universities that you are applying to. Some are not only SAT or ACT, but they also have subject tests. So you might want to look into that as well. You can take, I recommend that you take both the SAT and the ACT. They're very different tests, and your scores can be quite different with those. I would not take more than 3 times, though. Beyond 3 times, we see that there's actually no increase in your ability to increase your scores. And I would take preparatory classes if you can. There's plenty free preparatory classes, SAT or ACT prep classes available online. You could definitely find them. Just Google those. There's books that you can read. And then, of course, there's test prep centers that have some fees associated with them. So you find what's right for you. The third thing we talked about was extracurricular involvement. Now, lots of folks say, really, how important are those extracurricular involvements? And I would say that they're quite important for most U.S. institutions. They're actually going to be living on our campuses, a part of our communities. And so we're looking to see what you're going to bring outside the classroom as much as we are looking what you're going to bring inside the classroom. And we're looking to see if you're dedicated to certain things and not just trying a little bit of everything. I would recommend depth versus breadth, but if you have depth in several different areas, please comment on that and make sure we're aware of it. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be, it can be sports, it can be clubs, but it also can be work. If you're working outside, making an income, that shows certain parts about your personality. What if you're taking care of a sibling? Again, another important thing. Those are all considered extracurriculars beyond what are the more traditional ones. And sometimes it's easier. I know on the Common application, they have an area where you list all your activities, but sometimes it's easier just to create a resume and highlight those achievements, especially if you'd want to talk about any awards or honors that you had taken or that you had been received, including athletic achievements. We'd love to hear all about the areas where you are showing leadership or where you are being recognized as outstanding. So those extracurricular involvements are quite important. Now, in order to prepare for the college application process, here's just a couple tips to think about to pick the schools that you want to apply to. So, for example, I recommend that you do the research. There's plenty of tools out there right now, including the College Board has a tool where you can go on and you answer some questions about what you're looking for in a university experience, and then they'll spit out a list of colleges that fit your profile. That's always important. And when you find the ones that are kind of top on your list, try and familiarize yourself with what they look for. Are they looking for somebody strong in math, like I mentioned earlier? Are they looking for somebody that has leadership? And you can tell by what the admissions office is talking about is important to them. Make sure that when you answer those questionnaires about what you're looking for in a university, you're very, very honest about what you're really looking for. If you're looking for a very rural university, then make sure you say that, because the worst thing you can find is you'll find yourself in a city environment when you really don't enjoy, living in a city, or find that they don't really have the program that you're looking for. And then lastly, I think as you're starting to prepare your application, remember that you are trying to convey to every university you apply to that you are enthusiastic about what they offer. So, your essay has got to be more generic because it's not typically about one university, but there are other ways that you can convey to the university that you are enthusiastic about them. For example, you can write to the admissions counselor and tell them of your interest in their university, and that will typically go in your application. They'll make a copy of that and make sure that anybody who reads your application knows that you are enthusiastic about them. Showing your intellectual curiosity, that can certainly be done in your essay or through your letters of recommendation, but you're trying to Remember, universities have tens of thousands of applications and limited spaces, so you're trying to show them how interesting that you will be on their campus. And then as you go to fill out the application itself, as I said, Bentley is on the Common Application, but there are many other universities that have other types of applications. So these are just general tips about filling out an application, making sure that you have answered every question in the application thoroughly. There's only a couple areas where you can portray who you are. And so you're making sure you take advantage of every single one of those, whether it's the essay, your letters of recommendation from your teacher, your guidance counselor, even your list of activities, attaching your resume, as we mentioned earlier, and making sure the complete list of your activities is in there. And then finally, there's places, at least on the Common App, where you can expand on other things that you'd like us to know. So make sure you use all of those. Try to be as original as you can, and make sure that what you're talking about, especially in private messages to the university, is relevant to them, so they understand that you actually have done your research on them and know a little bit about them. Finally, I'm just going to wrap up with giving you a few minutes about Bentley University. As I mentioned at the start of the program, we are a top 10 business university in the United States. You can see these are the things that we think are important and unique about us. Even though you might not know what you want to major in business, that's okay at Bentley, because academically, for the first 2 years, you get exposed to all aspects of business, and then you only choose your major at the end of the second year. Our campus also is chock full with high technology laboratories. There's 7 of them, including the largest trading room of any university in the United States. So that environment that you're going to learn in is going to be quite robust. And thirdly, hands-on learning is really important. So not only what you learn in the classroom, but what you learn outside the classroom. We have several opportunities for you to do that. One being study abroad. So we have study abroad opportunities. Another being service learning, which is community service, but we actually give credit for it. The third and probably most important being internships. And internships are available to about 95% of last year's class had at least one internship. 72 had 2 or more. So internships are really common at Bentley. About 85% of them come with pay. And about 50% of them end up turning into a full-time job. From a campus life perspective, you will be living here on campus. Housing is available all 4 years. As I mentioned, we're about 13 kilometers outside of Boston, about 100 clubs and organizations, and we're a Division II athletic university, so about 23 Division II sports, and then we are Division I in men's ice hockey. So even if there's lots and lots of ways for you to participate in class, and then utilize Boston to its full extent. And then finally, I think what's really unique about Bentley is our career services. This is the group on almost every United States university campus that helps you get internships and jobs. We're particularly good at this. We work with every single freshman to develop a plan for them. And about this year, Princeton Review ranked Bentley's career services #1 in the country between all 5,000 universities here in the United States. It's quite a feat for a medium-sized institution like Bentley, about 4,200 undergrads, 1,500 graduate students. And then finally, all of these kind of combine to make our students quite successful. Last year's graduating class, 97% of them had a job, went on to grad school within 6 months of graduation. That's probably one of the highest you'll see of any university in the United States. It's been 97 or higher for the past 10 years. So this is a long-term success measure that Bentley is really proud to talk about. So just as a last reminder, as far as kind of wrapping up our assessment on what universities are looking for, remember to put that time and dedication into your application. Universities can tell if you are committed to them, if this is something that you're interested in. And so I encourage you to, I'm hoping I'm coming back up here. I encourage you to take the time to do that when you get a chance through your application. So I'm going to try and come back up here, and maybe I can, and maybe I can't. All right. Here we are. So hopefully that was really helpful for you. And thank you so much for listening to our first session on what U.S. institutions and universities are looking for with their students. Do we have any questions? Claire, I don't know if you're still there.
I am here. I don't see any questions. I know we have 3 viewers with us, but we will wait for a couple seconds. Those who are with us, feel free to chat in the chat box with any questions you have. I will give it another minute. If not, then we'll move on to the next session.
Okay, wonderful.
I think we can go ahead and move along. Those who are joining us, if you feel like a question will come to you after as we move along, please feel free to type it in the chat box, and I'm sure we'll get to it when time allows for more questions. Thanks.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, Claire, do you want me to start from the top again?
You can go ahead with moving on to the next section. However you choose would be good. Maybe
you're going to
introduce yourself as Bentley again.
Are you going to take these separately as 3 separate ones, or I should have asked you that question?
I'm going to do a continuous one, but I will break it out into separate sections.
All right, then should I do an introduction again?
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay, wonderful. All right, thanks, Claire. Hello, everyone. My name is Suzanne Cuccurullo. I'm Dean of Undergraduate Admissions here at Bentley University. We are a top 10 ranked business university in the United States. We're located about 13 kilometers outside of Boston, and we're considered a medium-sized institution. So we have about 4,200 undergraduates and about 1,500 graduate students, coming in around 6,000 students, which is about medium-sized in the United States. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the interview process if you choose to do an interview with an institution. And there's lots of reasons why I think this is a positive. So let me bring up some slides here to kind of run us through this topic. And we'll give this a shot. Okay. So the topic we're going to discuss right now is how to ace your college admissions interview. And let's kind of go right into why do colleges even offer interviews? First, it's actually to learn a lot more about you as an applicant. And just like you're looking to find a university that fits for you, we're looking for candidates who will fit in our institution. So we're kind of trying to figure out if you're the kind of student that would be successful at our institution. And the second reason why we offer them is we're trying to understand if you're interested in our school or not. So if you go to the trouble of going and doing an interview, our impression is that you'd probably be pretty interested in us. So that's a good way to let a university know that yes, you are on their list, or they are on your list. So let's talk about the kinds of admissions interviews that are available. Some institutions require interviews, and it's right on their website that you can find out if they're required or not. And most of these, again, are it could be before you apply, or it might be required after you apply. So make sure that you take a look, because of course, if they're required and you don't do an interview, that surely tells an institution something about your interest in them. The second type of interview is encouraged. This is where Bentley is. We encourage interviews, and it's mostly because we want to make sure we can answer any of the outstanding questions you have. And again, for those reasons that I mentioned before, is there a good fit? And are you interested in us? Then there's optional, which, that might not be a part of the evaluation of whether you're interested or not. Some are evaluative, which means they're actually making evaluations of your ability to do the work there in the interview. And then finally, there's just informational. Now, some interviews are done with admissions counselors. Some are done with current students, and some are done with alumni. All of these are valid ways to get an admissions interview. There also can be in person or via Skype or WhatsApp. So there's lots of ways, no matter how far away you are from an institution, to make sure that you get in an interview if they offer them and if you're interested. So here's the first question: should you interview? And I will just tell you right off the bat, if it's an option, the answer is yes. This is a very unique opportunity to show your personality beyond what's written in an application. And so you would want to make sure that you use every opportunity you could to let them know who you are. And so if it is, no matter whether it's optional or informational, I would take that opportunity for sure to take advantage of an interview. So let's talk about how to ace that interview, how to do really, really well. Here's a couple of what I call interview do's. So the first one is, this won't surprise you, you should arrive on time. I know that there's sometimes traffic comes in play, or you can't make the computer connection on time, but you should do whatever you can, even if it's showing up at half hour early or an hour early and walking around campus, or just making sure that everything's downloaded on your phone the way you need it to be for an online interview. But make sure that you actually connect on time. Second is dress to impress. And I'm not talking about a suit, although if that's how makes you feel better, that you want to wear a suit or a dress, that's perfectly fine. What I'm more talking about is that it should be neat, not professional. I say professional, but I mean, no low-cut tops, no ripped t-shirts, no short jeans or shorts. You are trying to impress the interviewer. So the visuals are going to be important for what you look like when you come in. Third is, this is actually a conversation. So answering questions with yes, no answers is probably not going to be a very good conversation. So think about it as you're having a conversation with your parent's best friend. How's that? And somebody that is friendly, wants you to be successful, but wants to have a conversation with you. So kind of visualize it in that way. And then fourth, you should do your homework. In order to be really successful at an interview, you got to know a little bit more about the university so that you can ask really good questions. And it'll look like you have done your research, you know enough about them. For example, I mentioned at the top of the segment that we're a business university. So if you came in and you asked me if you could go pre-med at my school, my answer is No, I'm a business university. You can manage doctors when you come to Bentley University, but you cannot become a doctor through Bentley University. So, asking that kind of question would show me that you didn't really know who we were. So make sure you do your homework. Um, Here's a couple more things to do to be successful at these. I kind of hinted at this one. Bring a list of questions to ask your interviewer. They're going to inevitably, at some point in the interview, they're going to turn it around and say, do you have any questions for me? So you should be prepared with some relevant questions that you want to ask them about. If you're super interested in study abroad opportunities through the university, make sure you ask those questions. If you want to ask about what kind of clubs or a certain organization that you're part of and you want to see if they're a member of it, have that question prepared. But that's part of your research, is developing those questions. Next, be yourself. um, if you misrepresent who you are, especially academically, we're going to find out. So if you say to me, you're an AB student, and I'll get your transcript eventually because I'll make note of that, and I get your transcript and you're actually a BC student, that does not bode well for you. I'm already thinking, well, what else did they not tell me that was, how did they misrepresent themselves? So, most of the things we're going to find out about you through your application, through your references. So, just be honest, be authentic about yourself. When I say about, a BC student, there are reasons why students don't do well at certain points of time. And if you leave it up to our imagination on why you got the C in chemistry, you're probably not going to bode as well. So if there's a rationale for a downturn in your grades or a reason why you weren't able to take the next level in mathematics, let us know. Illnesses in the family, um, uh, um, death in the family, the way that your classes lined up so that you weren't able to take a certain class. Those would be really important things for you to explain to us why there's anything unusual in your transcript. So now we've kind of finished with the do's. So let's look into a few don'ts that you shouldn't be doing in interviews. I think sometimes, this is helpful as well. The first one I would say is don't memorize your answers. You can certainly think about in advance how you want to respond to certain questions. Like, if they ask you, am I going to see anything that'll need explanation on your transcript? You should be prepared to explain why that happened. But if it sounds rote, it sounds like, something you memorize, it's just not as meaningful. So I would recommend against that. Second thing, I would never ask what your chances of being admitted are. It's an awkward question, number one. It's never a good place for, like, if you're talking with a student, they're really not going to know. If you're talking with an alum, they're not really going to know. And frankly, if you're talking with an admissions counselor, they typically won't know either until they see the entire application pool. So they're not going to be able to give you a great answer, and it'd just be awkward for you and for them. So I'd avoid that question. I say you don't assume that the interview knows everything about you. Many times, especially at Bentley, students come in to interview before we even see the application. So that's what this interview is about, is to learn more about you. And I kind of mentioned that the fourth one, when we were talking about a conversation, giving one-word answers does not inspire a conversation. So, talking complete sentences, give examples of your answers. So say somebody says, tell me about an opportunity that you had when you considered yourself a really good leader. And if your one-word answer is, well, I started the trading club. Okay, but I want to know more about that. So give me more detail. about the club and why you did it and how it's been successful. Those kinds of things are important to have the whole conversation. A few more don'ts. Cell phones. I have to tell you, I've actually been in an interview where the student's cell phone went off. Okay, bad enough. He actually answered it and had a conversation in the middle of the interview. This is horrible. This does not show the institution that you're really, really interested in him. So I would recommend that you turn off the cell phone, or you don't even bring it in the room with you. Leave it in the car, or leave it in another room. You do not want temptations with your cell phone. You want to be on point with your interviewer and paying attention. Um, Asking basic or obvious questions. This is a little bit more about doing your homework, asking a U.S. institution if they have study abroad is probably pretty basic. Almost every U.S. institution has a study abroad program. Asking, do you have programs in Australia? Because I always wanted to go to Australia. They have a really interesting finance model there. Shows me you know about me, shows me you know about Australia and it's why it's pertinent to you. I mean, there's all kinds of positives about asking a little bit less basic question. Now, the next one, try not to be shy. I mean, there's lots of different personality traits, and every campus wants to have outgoing people and shy people and quiet leaders and bold leaders. So if that's your basic personality, that's great. But remember, this conversation, you don't have to take over the conversation, but you should be able to, carry on a two-way conversation with it. And then finally, don't forget to follow up. A handwritten thank you note or an email thank you note really goes a long way with your interviewer and telling them that you are really interested in them. So I would recommend that as something that you definitely need to include in your interview process. So I'll finish up here with telling you just a few minutes about Bentley University. Now that we've kind of talked about it, and we've mentioned that Bentley does offer interviews. I will tell you, I mentioned we're a business university, one of the top 10 in the United States. Actually, Money Magazine just ranked us as number 3 a couple weeks ago, so that was exciting. And there's a couple components of our education which are key. The first one being our academics. You have to be interested in business, but business is quite broad. It's everything from computers to finance to marketing to communications, public relations, actuarial science. If you're interested in maybe possibly going into the insurance fields or somewhere with money or numbers are quite important. Data analytics is probably our newest major. And you don't have to pick your major until the end of your second year. First 2 years, you're going to be exposed to all aspects of business. So that's important. We also believe that the arts and sciences and business are quite important together. So about half of your classes will be in the arts and sciences. From a technology standpoint, Bentley's campus is quite high tech. We have 7 high-tech labs across campus, everything from a Mac and Media Lab where you can create videos and websites to a marketing technology laboratory where you'll learn to do focus groups and research to the largest trading room in the United States at a university where you'll learn to trade stocks and bonds and how to research companies. As important as it is what you're learning in the classroom, we feel equally important on what's learning outside the classroom. So we do offer study abroad opportunities, including study abroad or abroad internships. So you can get an internship abroad through Bentley as well. We also have service learning opportunities. We call it service learning because you actually get credits for it. And there's lots of leadership opportunities as you can manage a community service project on the Bentley campus. And then probably most importantly, there's internships. About 95% of our students end up getting an internship while they're at Bentley, one internship. 72 get 2 or more. About 85% of those internships are paid, and about 50% of them end up turning into a full-time job. Many times the job offers will go out before the start of your senior year, your final year, so you can go through your final year of university with a job offer in hand already, which is that's a kind of nice opportunity. Campus life, I mentioned a little bit about what it's like. We are residential campuses. You can live on Bentley's campus all 4 years, starting in a dormitory, moving on to suites, and then eventually apartments. Hundreds of clubs that you can join. Athletics are very big on the U.S. University campus. Bentley is what's considered Division II. And then we have career services that are also available all 4 years. And then finally, and Bentley's career services is actually ranked #1 in the United States out of all 5,000 institutions. So they're quite good at helping students find internships and careers. And then finally, I'll just talk about our outcomes. Last year, 97% of our students actually, I'm going to try and get us out of this so we can have a conversation again. There we are. 97% of our students actually got a job, full-time job in their field, or went on to graduate school within 6 months of graduation, which is one of the highest you're going to see of any institution in the United States. I actually have a student here with me, a Bentley student, that I'm going to bring along here, and I'll have them talk a little bit about the interviewing process. Come on in. Hi, I am really just going to put you guys on the spot. Pull up a chair. After talking to some students in South Africa, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Hi, guys.
And I've just kind of finished giving them the do's and don'ts of interviewing.
Okay.
And so, did either of you interview before you came to university?
I did not, but I wish I had.
And what about no?
I did not hear.
But do you do interviews now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so
Plenty.
you guys, I mentioned previously that you can actually get an interview from a student, and these are two of our students that actually do interviews for Bentley. So why don't you explain what you kind of are looking for and what you think about the interview process?
Sure. So I think the interview process, like when you're thinking about it, can sound intimidating, but it's so much like not like that. I think that our goal in an interview is just to find out more about you so that when the admissions committee is kind of reviewing applications, they can put a face to your application and not just kind of be looking at the different components of your application already. But it's really just a conversation between Bentley students like Ben and I and you about your different high school experiences in and outside of the classroom and why you're interested in Bentley University.
So what's the difference, in your opinion, of meeting with a student for an interview than an admissions counselor?
Well, I think either way, it's going to be a great opportunity to talk to someone at Bentley and get to know more information about the school. But I personally like talking to students, especially the student one-on-one, because you really get to know more about the school from someone who's actually going to school there currently. You can get the real answers to someone who's gone through what you're going through right now, who had to make that decision, who chose Bentley, and really can give you the insight on why they chose Bentley and what they love about the school.
So I got to ask you guys, why did you choose Bentley?
I can go first. I think on the surface, I chose Bentley just because it's a great, esteemed business school. We have a small faculty to student ratio, so you can really develop like close relationships with professors. And we have a career services department and placement rate that's really unprecedented at colleges in the United States. But I think when I visited Bentley and when I spoke to people who are currently attending, I realized that the type of student who went here was A, going to be prepared for life after college, but B, was just really immersed in their college experience and was excited about being here. And that environment was something that I knew I wanted to be a part of, because these are 4 short years, but 4 really exciting ones full of growth. And I wanted to make the most of that opportunity.
And what about you?
Yeah, so a lot of similar answers to Jared here. I know I'm from New Jersey, which is about 4.5 hours away, which is not quite as far as South Africa, but for me, it was a bit of a distance. So when I was looking at good business schools, I wanted to find somewhere where A, I could get a great education, hopefully get a job after college, but 2, I wanted a school to feel like home. I'm obviously going to stay here on the weekends. I wanted to meet nice people and really feel like a home away from home. And when I visited a lot of the schools, some schools just really didn't have that feel, but as soon as I stepped on the campus at Bentley, I was really noticeable how everybody here is so nice. They really make you feel at home, and just walking around the campus, I could just absolutely see myself going here for the next 4 years. So that's what sealed the deal, in combination with what Jared said, obviously.
Yeah. Claire, do we have any questions?
We don't have any questions just yet, but thanks, guys. I really appreciate your comments and insight. Also hail from New Jersey, so I'm happy to hear that. So I have the New Jersey and the South African mix. So there you go. So no questions as yet. I've seen, as much as 5 viewers come on to the YouTube Live channel, and then go back down to about 2. But no questions have come through as of yet. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I think I'm going to keep these guys with me, and we can go on to our third topic, if that's okay with you.
Oh, that'd be great. Cool.
All right. And you want me to start it from the beginning again?
I think you can actually move nicely into, because the interviews and the essays tend to happen at the same time. So I would like to package them as a one presentation.
Wonderful. Okay. So that's I'm going to make sure that the next topic we have to talk about, and Claire, you're going to edit this part out, right?
Yes, I will.
Okay. So Claire is doing a series of recordings for students who can come into Education USA and listen to these topics, just take them out, or she can send them to them. So we're going to talk in general about the college essay and why, kind of what to look for. So I've got some tips, and then you guys can just join in since you've already kind of gone through the process. Great. So again, we're from Bentley University, and we'll give you a little bit of feel for what we've got here. Let me share some of these slides, and you'll know that we are talking behind them. There we go. I know, isn't that crazy? I did something, and I'm not sure what I did, but I'm just going to move forward. Okay. So here's some kind of college essay do's and don'ts, and guys, just join in when something kind of hits you. So why do colleges use the college essay, and what is the purpose? Why are we looking at them? And I would say probably the first reason why we look at them is to evaluate your writing ability. So especially if English is not your first language. Now, I know South Africa, English is, but, say that you're coming from someplace else where English is not your first language. We're going to look at the essay as one of the ways we can evaluate your ability to write English. Second reason why we look at them is we're looking to find something about you that is interesting, something important. So it's about, this whole essay has got to be about you and sharing some additional information. And then finally, the reason why we look at it is we're trying to assess your fit. So for example, in your essay to Bentley University, if you said, I've always wanted to be a doctor, that's probably not going to be a very good fit for us. And I can see that in the essay automatically. Whereas if you say something like, I started my first business when I was 5, and now I own landscaping businesses. I own 3 landscaping businesses. I'm going to say, wow, this student is a pretty good fit for a Bentley University. So you can start to give universities an idea of why you are applying to them through your essay. That's what I talk about is plan ahead. How far ahead did you guys actually plan to get your essays done?
I think honestly, because like my school was really focused on it, a few months ahead we may have started. But I think that it's a work in progress, and it's something that like you edit over time, and you can start with and then put down and refresh with a new perspective.
Yeah, I think even before the Common App came out in the summer, I started looking and thinking about what I was going to write about. Because they give you a couple of prompts, and I think it's like, for me, it was important to think about when you're writing one of these college essays, you have to think about what matters to you and what's going to be important to you and what's something you feel strongly about, because that leads to, I think, the best writing. So I started thinking about a couple topics that maybe could relate beforehand. So
I just had 2 children go through the college admissions process, and I was one of those horrible mothers, and I said, you will have it finished by the end of the summer. Now, when I said that, I mean, I wanted what they considered a finished draft, but to be honest, they still had a lot of people to review it through. But, setting that deadline, because a common application opens August 1st. So having, a deadline is really, really key when you're trying to make sure. So once you start your last year in secondary school, the last thing you need to be thinking about is, oh boy, I got to now come up with a topic. That's like the wrong thing to do. So you guys were good. You listened to your mother here, and you did it in advance. So here are a couple do's about your essays. One is remember who's reading it. So admissions counselors read the college application, and they read the essay. Now, I actually was in a conference the other day, and they were talking about how much do you really read of a college essay. And to be honest, I think it depends on the size of the university. So I mentioned earlier that Bentley's a medium-sized institution, about 6,000 students, both grad and undergrad. And so we read actually every single essay. But when you go to a large institution, and some of them in the United States can be quite large, 40,000, 50,000 students, there's just no way in 3 months you can read 50,000 or 80,000 applications. Just reality sets in here. So remember, you're writing for an admissions counselor who it comes from different points of view, different values. You don't know what they are. That'll lead into some of our don'ts in a second. And they're trying to find out through there if you're the right person for them. So, and then be sure you answer the questions that you're asked. So, do you guys even remember what your prompt was, what you answered?
Yeah, I think mine was about an obstacle that I had overcome
in
high school. So I wrote about my experience with cross country, which was something that I joined as a freshman and really struggled with. And then by senior year, I ended up leading the team. And so I talked about kind of that improvement process, and I think, in my leadership. And I think one of the most important things in that process was to tell a story so that the admissions committee and those counselors that Suzanne just spoke about could understand kind of who I was behind the experiences that I had.
Yeah, I wrote on the same topic.
Did you really?
I wrote about some insecurities I had with myself going through middle school and high school, and then about how at the end of the day, going into college, I am happy with the way I am and wouldn't change anything about me if I had the opportunity to.
Perfect. Here's kind of a little bit about the topic that you choose. We talk a little bit about brainstorming with your friends and family. How did you come up with your topics?
It was hard. I was at first I didn't think I had anything to write about, and then suddenly I was there are so many different things I could cover. But I think just thinking about a rounded experience that you've really been able to invest yourself in, or that's been central to you, goes a long way.
Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about here. We're trying to see that passion that you have. We're trying to see where you're different from everybody else. So being able to come through on that topic is important.
Yeah, I remember sitting around at the dinner table with my family, just constantly being thinking to write about this, thinking to write about this, asking all my friends. Just the more people I talked to, I felt a little better about it, just because you need more people to run it by and make sure it's
why you do it early, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another do is kind of keep the reader engaged. That first sentence, even when you're doing a paper for a class, they always talk about the first sentence being really important. Well, it very much is in an essay. You're trying to grab our attention. And remember, at Bentley, we get around 10,000 applications. So personally, I probably read 2,500 essays. So being able to grab my attention with something is pretty important. Essay length. Do you have problems staying to the length that you were required?
I don't think so. I think I remember being what? We're only supposed to write this much after I got into it. And then I realized and made my language more concise.
Going back and doing that editing, we'll talk about that.
I was the same exact way. The first essay I wrote, I did a little word check on Microsoft Word, and I remember being probably double the limit, and I was oh my goodness. But again, starting early, I was okay, it's mid-August, I have time to refine this, I have an idea, and at least you have a draft, and it's more feasible to work with a draft than just nothing at all.
Absolutely. And I will say, if you go beyond the limit, on Common App, they actually cut your essay. So, and if the school has the time, they can go back and retrieve it, but a lot of the times they don't. So whatever it was in the bottom half that you were saying, chances are a university will never see it. So be careful about that length, and creative and fun. Again, that's part of keeping the reader engaged. We talked a little bit about this as far as reducing the length and all the rest of it, but proofreading and using correct spelling and grammar. Remember, one of the things that I said universities are using this for, which is evaluating your writing ability. So you would not believe the number of times I see typos or grammatical errors. And I mean, frankly, if you're that lax in a college essay, are you going to be successful on my campus? It's not to giving the right message. So, can you believe I actually have seen other universities' names in an essay that they gave to me? Yeah, like not a good idea. I would stay away from putting a college name in at all, because especially on the Common App, the essay goes to everybody. So don't even bother putting a college name into it. And don't over edit or lose your voice. So when you guys went shorter, how hard was it to kind of keep the tone that you're looking for?
There's definitely a balancing act there, because you obviously need to keep yourself within that length, but you don't want to lose like your unique perspective. I think that was a challenge, and something that I would recommend you be mindful of when you're writing the essay. But I think also it's really important when you're getting different perspectives from other people, when people are editing your essay, make sure that recognize that those are just edits, and you don't necessarily need to follow every different piece of advice that you get, because that could be another way that you lose your unique perspective over time.
Yeah, I was the same way when I had like all my friends read my essay, and my parents, and sometimes people would point out like issues with it or like grammatical errors, and I was really appreciative. But other times they'd point out and they'd be like, I don't know if you actually want to go that direction with it. And I'd think about it, and I'd be like I really appreciate their insight there, but I think that is the direction I want to go with it. At the end of the day, it's something you're submitting, so
yeah, absolutely.
Be proud to put your name on
it. The other I think, is essay that when you're thinking about your topic, we're not expecting you to cure world hunger here. You don't have to come up with something that's like so earth-shattering that we all go, oh my God. I mean, if you did cure world hunger, please write an essay about it. But yeah, but otherwise it can be mundane topic. It can be about your track experience. It can be, I give this example about a young man who wrote about his shoes. I mean, I know that's like really crazy, but he talked about the shoes, and that it took him to his first, prom. It took him to, his first day of work, and how these shoes kind of were his companion throughout his journey through high school. And it gave you a lot of insight into him, and it got passed around the whole office. And then I get this call one day from a counselor and said, Suzanne, you got to come out to the visitor center. Shoe Boy is here. And I knew exactly who it was. And I go out and I meet him and his mother. I said, we just really loved your essay. And Mom was like, on the shoes? I was like, yeah, it was like really insightful. So, I think, any way that you can kind of find an unusual way to talk about yourself, I think is always a positive. All right. And then let's talk a couple don'ts. So expected topics, something that we might have already learned about in your essay or in your application. You probably don't want to choose that as a topic for your essay. Or cliche. I would say these are probably the most common cliche ones that we hear over and over again. My trip or experience to wherever changed my life. And you know what? I'm not saying don't use these if this is really what you're most passionate about, but just know that we hear these a lot. So got to find a new unique voice for it. The time I won whatever sporting event it could have been and how that changed my life. Winning that, the time I scored, or my mother, father, grandfather, grandmother, whoever has been the biggest influence on me. I love those kinds of topics as long as it's actually about you and not your mother, father, because believe it or not, I'm not going to admit your mother, father, and grandfather. I'm admitting you. So it's got to be all about you.
Yeah.
I think just on this point too, I experienced a lot of difficulties with cliches in my college essay, and I think a piece of advice that I was given that I really appreciated was validating my feeling with that cliche, but saying show them. And really provide experiences that prove that your life was changed through this experience, as opposed to just outwardly stating my life was changed.
Yeah, right. It's exactly right. All right, and another set of don'ts here. Inappropriate essay topics. Had one last year, learned all about somebody's first kiss. Probably not enough information about you as a person. Probably not appropriate topic. Drug, alcohol use. These are all inappropriate. I don't think I have to go into much detail on why those probably aren't appropriate topics, but believe it or not, we do get those. So even though it might have been an earth-shattering experience for you, those kinds of things we're just not really interested in learning about. I'm not going to even ask you guys any to comment on that. Controversial topics. Remember we talked about know your audience? You don't know who's reading this application, and you don't know if they agree with your point of view or not. So you can go there, but you need to go there. If you're going to go into a controversial topic, you need to kind of write intelligently about it, stay away from diatribes about it. I would ask somebody's opinion whether this is an appropriate topic or not. You're getting into a little bit of a questionable area, so it's got to be something that's going to really highlight you and your personal point of view to a great extent before you go down that path.
Yeah, because the essay really has to be all about you.
Yeah.
So you should really focus on yourself, maybe, and less on some of those topics that could go either way.
I mean, you might feel really strongly about global warming, and maybe you've done things, and that would be great. But if you want to go on a diatribe about global warming, you don't know what the other person's thinking about. So you might need to just be careful about that. Again, persuasive essays where you are trying to convince the reader to your point of view. This usually happens when something you're really passionate about. Just be careful about them. And I'm not saying you don't need to persuade the reader to your point of view. They're trying to learn about you, not your point of view necessarily. So here's a good one. Plagiarize. What happens at university if they get caught plagiarizing?
Yeah, you'll have a conduct hearing and likely be
dismissed.
Yeah, dismissed.
Yeah. So if I find out that you plagiarized any part of your essay, you're not even going to get a chance here. If we dismiss our students, we won't even go further. And everybody's going to say, "How can you tell?" We can tell.
They can tell.
Yeah. Google is a wonderful thing. A lot of times I'll just copy a piece of an essay and I'll put it in Google in quotes, and it'll come back and I'll know exactly where it came from. So don't do that. That's a big, huge no-no. We talked about the common essay prompts. There's several choices. These are the ones coming up. So you can take a look at those. You can get on Common App right now and reflect on any of these. Hopefully you're pretty far down the path on this because the deadlines are coming. For Bentley University, our early decision deadline is November 15th. Our regular decision is January 7th. So you still have a little bit of time for regular decision. But as we say, you should have been already down the path on these if you're a senior. For those of you that are younger, hopefully you'll take our advice and do a lot of planning ahead. And here's a couple of the other essay prompts. We've kind of talked a little bit about Bentley. I'm going to just ask you guys, I'm going to get out of this. Go back to where we were. There we go. Either of you had internships while you've been here at Bentley?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your internship experiences?
Yeah, definitely. So this is my junior year, sophomore year, summer. I interned at a small computer science slash finance. So I did a bit of financial data analytics at a small consulting company near my home. So it was a great experience. Bentley really helped me get a lot of opportunities to look at sophomore year. If you're willing and eager, again, our career services is incredible, but you really have to put yourself out there, keep going to them, and let them know how eager you are and how excited you are to try one of these internships. So it was a great experience. I learned a lot. It was the thing where a lot of people really want you to get an internship, and ideally you love it and think that's the career for you and what you want to go with. But the thing I did this summer, it was great. I learned a lot. But what I think was the most important thing I learned was that it's really not actually what I actually want to go into. But I think it's a great learning experience because I did learn a lot, but I also learned I liked this part of it. I didn't like that part. And knowing that, I think I made a better decision going for my junior summer internships.
What was your junior year summer internship?
So this will be this summer. I just
You already have it.
yeah. So they're trying to work early in the year. I wanted to get it done as soon as I could. So we did a couple of interviews on campus, and I decided I'm going to be doing a finance internship with Prudential this summer.
Oh, interesting. So what's your major?
Finance.
Finance. Okay. So, but computers as well.
So I was debating a minor in CS. So I was doing some like financial data analytics. So looking with some using some financial softwares, which was a little more computer oriented than I would have liked.
And that's the part you didn't like.
Yeah, but I did like the fact that you would get to look at the numbers from companies and really. I like telling a story, like to try and make the numbers mean something. So that was the part I liked, where the more computer science tech part was not my favorite.
Yeah, and lots of students have minors. Do either of you have minors?
I currently don't. I'm in between two. I'm not sure.
Now you have to rethink that.
Yeah, I minor in psychology.
Okay. All right. And what's your major?
I'm a management major.
Okay. All right.
Do you want to hear about my experience?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm a senior, which is kind of a bittersweet experience for me. But 2 years ago in the summer before my junior year, I interned. I concentrate in human resources.
Okay.
And so I interned in Boston at a small real estate investment management firm and did human resources as an intern for that company. And what was really great about that experience is that it was a rotational experience. So I was able to kind of dip my toes into each different aspect of human resources at a company to really see what my kind of areas of expertise or the areas that I was most interested in were going into my next year, where I would be looking at other internships and eventually full-time positions. And so then I kind of used that experience to land a larger role at a global organization. And so I interned at Dell in their human resources department. Yeah, and what was really cool about that experience, it was in Hopkinton, yep, right outside of Boston.
Works for them.
Get out, we'll have to talk. But what was really great about that experience is that it filters you through, if you're successful in your internship, to a full-time role that's a 3-year rotation program. Yeah. And what I knew about my first internship was that I loved the rotational experience. And so after a really great time with them, I'm signed on to join them after graduation.
Oh, wait, you already have a job offer.
Which is, yeah, I do, which is kind of wild, but I think a situation that a lot of Bentley students find themselves in is that just by living life at Bentley through academics and really getting involved, you're more prepared for the real world than you think you are, because this university just sets you up with that kind of expertise as a student pretty naturally.
Well, that's a nice way to go into your senior year.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
Yeah.
All right, Claire, I'm going to ask, do we have any questions again?
No, we don't, but wow, you guys have shared so much information that I think is so valuable to our students and our scholars, especially the ones that are finishing up essays, and even speaking to some of our early action or early decision students that are going through the process of interviews at the moment. So thank you so much.
Do you have any questions for us or the students?
No,
Claire, yourself?
Anything that I wanted, had a question on, you answered perfectly. So there's
excellent.
There's nothing. It was very thorough, and I really loved having the perspective of the students. You two gentlemen sharing with us. It's been valuable because, as I said, with my students, sometimes they're like, "Oh, Claire, you graduated over 10 years ago. I mean, what do you know anymore?" So it's always nice to get a fresh perspective about what is happening at this point in time, and then of course from from an admissions office point of view, what you're looking for and what you're wanting from students. I think it's highly valuable. especially here in South Africa right now, where our students are so in the crunch of exams and, you know, hardly coming up to breathe. But in the same token, trying to finish up their college applications.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Claire. Let me know if you need anything else, or if your students are interested in interviewing, since we did cover that topic. We do have them available. You can actually go right online and ask for a Skype interview or a WhatsApp interview.
Perfect.
And our students are willing to do it. We know there's a time difference, so a lot of the times you might actually be talking to a student in their dorm room instead of during their business hours here. So we're happy to do that.
Great. I really appreciate it, Suzanne. And thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate the insight and your time.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.